you've seen the 12 laws that help us read masks, motives, and projections, but insight can drift into control fast. This is part 2, how to use those laws without becoming a manipulator. First, 6 ethical principles to guide how you see. Then, 6 growth practices to keep your power humane. Let's begin. Don't weaponize someone's wound. When we study human behavior, it's easy to forget that the person we're studying can feel it. Every insight has an edge. When you notice the tremor in a friend's voice, the tightening of a jaw, the contradiction in their story, you're holding something fragile, their pain made visible. Nietzsche warned that knowledge and cruelty often travel together. The more clearly we see, the greater our temptation to test what we see. True insight is restraint. It's the decision not to pierce, even when you could. Imagine a debate where you catch the other person's insecurity. You could press on that nerve and win, but winning that way costs something. Trust. A victory that trades empathy for dominance breeds silence, not respect. Nietzsche wrote that cruelty is the oldest festival of humanity. To see another's weakness without exploiting it, that's evolution. Ask yourself, when I recognize someone's wound, do I help them guard it or turn it into proof of my intelligence? Respect the knowledge imbalance. The moment you begin to see patterns, you create imbalance. You now hold awareness. The other person doesn't. That awareness can build connection or hierarchy. Knowledge isn't neutral. Every interpretation exerts force. Every observation positions the observer. So if you can read someone's motives before they've spoken, remember that power isn't permission, it's responsibility. Use questions instead of declarations. I notice you seem tense. Am I right? Opens a door. You're obviously lying. Slams it. One expands truth. The other guards ego. Seeing clearly means accepting how partial your vision still is. The more you perceive, the more you must doubt yourself. Nietzsche distrusted the knowers who believed insight freed them from error. There are no facts, he said, only interpretations. Forget that, and you stop being a reader of truth. You become a preacher of it. Power in perception isn't evil, it's just weight. The danger begins when the weight feels good, that small thrill. I see what they can't. That's the ego asking to be worshipped. Real mastery means resisting that thrill, turning knowledge outward as service. If your understanding of people makes you colder, it isn't insight, it's armor. The more you perceive, the gentler you must become. Knowledge expands the field of care. Use it to steady, not to strike. You are not above the laws you observe. The danger of insight is inflation. Once you begin to read the hidden motives of others, it's easy to believe you stand outside the game. Observer rather than participant. Nietzsche warned against that illusion. He called it the ascetic ideal, the belief that intellect can rise above the human mess. But even the observer is entangled. The moment you interpret, you reveal your own lens. When you notice hypocrisy, jealousy, or fear in someone else, pause before you label it their problem. Ask what part of you recognizes it so quickly. Projection is recognition. We spot in others what we suppress in ourselves. The more you interpret others, the more you must reinterpret yourself. Otherwise, you become what Nietzsche called the preachers of morality, those who use truth to escape it. Ask, is this insight or superiority? Every act of perception carries motive. Why am I explaining this? Why am I pointing it out? Insight offered in pride becomes manipulation disguised as teaching. Nietzsche's will to power doesn't mean domination. It means the creative drive to shape meaning. When that drive turns inward, it builds. When it turns outward, without empathy, it conquers. Before you share an observation, pause. Ask, is this serving clarity or serving my ego? Think of how quickly we use psychology as proof of intelligence. She's projecting. He's narcissistic. They're gaslighting. Labels can illuminate, but they can also anesthetize compassion. Mystery is where humility lives. Use insight to connect, not to win. The easiest misuse of knowledge is the argument. We listen not to understand, but to prepare our next strike. We wait for contradiction instead of context. Nietzsche wrote that the most perfidious way of harming a cause is to defend it deliberately with faulty arguments. Winning a debate means nothing if truth loses. When you know another's patterns, you hold leverage, but leverage turns learning into warfare. Use what you know to frame questions that soften the ground. What did you mean by that? What were you feeling then? Questions humanize, accusations harden. Connection is slower than conquest and infinitely more durable. To expose others, expose yourself. Exposure is seductive. We love to unmask hypocrisy, to reveal the hidden agenda. But truth spoken from behind a mask becomes performance, not honesty. Nietzsche wrote that every profound spirit needs a mask, but the mask should serve expression, not concealment. If you demand transparency from others, offer it first. Admit confusion before criticism. Share uncertainty before insight. People open where they feel safe. When you reveal your own contradiction, I see this in you because I wrestle with it too. You transform analysis into empathy. The point of seeing clearly is not to dominate the unseen, it's to join it consciously. You can't lead someone out of illusion if you refuse to acknowledge your own. Turn every law inward first. Each time you see deception in someone else, ask where that same impulse hides in you. Awareness is magnetic. It pulls similar material from your own psyche. When you say, "She's always seeking validation," pause and ask, "Where do I seek it?" Nietzsche called this self-overcoming, not self-hate, not shame, Overcoming means integrating the parts we've denied until they stop controlling us. From the dark, turning the law inward first shifts the lens from "I've figured them out" to "I'm still figuring myself out." That humility keeps learning alive. Name your mask, then let it fall. Masks aren't lies, they're tools. We craft them to survive. The worker, the friend, the parent. But a mask that once protected can harden into prison walls. You forget where the mask ends and where you begin. Ask, what fear does each role protect? The achiever protects fear of failure. The helper protects fear of abandonment. The moralist protects fear of chaos. See the fear, and you loosen the mask. Authenticity isn't natural, it's earned through destruction. Letting a mask fall feels like loss, but every death of illusion widens the space for truth. Catch your overreactions. When the reaction is larger than the moment, the past is present. Our strongest emotions are ancient habits of feeling. When anger floods you faster than logic, pause, ask, what old wound is speaking through me now? Every surge of emotion is data from an older self, asking to be updated. The next time you feel rage, humiliation, or jealousy, don't defend it, document it. What happened? Who was there? What story returned? Through repetition, emotion becomes identity. Through reflection, identity becomes choice. Freedom begins the moment the reaction slows, enough for reflection to enter. Track your repeated defenses. The stories we repeat are the ones we still believe. Our defenses are invisible until repetition gives them shape. That's just how I am. Everyone does it. I didn't mean it that way. Habits of defense protect the image of the self, but protection can suffocate growth. Repetition is confession. Spend 1 week mapping your defenses. Patterns you can name are patterns you can change. Repetition is the autobiography of avoidance, and the courage to reread that autobiography begins transformation. Reframe guilt as inherited code. Most guilt isn't moral, it's cultural memory. Voices from family, religion, or society whisper through us long after they've gone silent outside. Ask yourself, whose standard am I trying to satisfy? Some guilt guides, some guilt governs. True conscience clarifies. Inherited guilt contracts. When you feel guilt, translate it. I'm bad becomes a rule is speaking through me. Then decide if that rule still deserves authority. Chains fall when you question the voice that forged them. Nietzsche's goal wasn't rebellion, it was self-legislation. The courage to write your own code of values. Let empathy anchor your power. Nietzsche admired strength, but not cruelty. Power must be creative, life-affirming. Without empathy, power decays into domination. With empathy, it becomes art. Each insight you gain gives you leverage. Empathy turns that leverage into stewardship. It reminds you that every person you read is also reading you. Before you analyze, breathe. The goal isn't to be right, it's to be real. Empathy doesn't dull power, it directs it. It turns perception into protection. Nietzsche didn't hand us dominion, he handed us mirrors. Use these principles to steady your vision. Use these practices to soften your power. Ask yourself, which insight challenged me most? Which practice will I begin today? If you missed part 1, Nietzsche's 12 psychological laws, how to read anyone instantly, watch it next. Explore the mind, transform your life.